how can you read this book? How can you read things like this? Like, girl, because it's called fiction, okay? Hey guys, what's up? It's Ashley. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I am really excited for today's video. This is one I've been working on for quite a while because dark romance is my main go-to. It's basically how I was introduced to the romance genre, was with a dark romance. And so I kind of wanted to come on here and do a guide to dark romance because I do get a lot of questions. I get a lot of DMs on my Bookstagram. People message me on here asking me like kind of where to start with. So I did a poll on my Instagram and I got some very interesting answers, to say the least. I asked what everybody's idea of a good intro to dark romance is, like what good suggestions for books would be to start with this, and needless to say, the answers were all very out there. A lot of people put some books that I don't think are a dark romance. Other people put books that I would never consider an intro to dark romance, like because they're too intense. I decided for this video, I'm gonna kind of do levels of dark romance. Basically, kind of where to dip your toe into, and then the further down you go, like you get totally crazy out there. So hopefully this will kind of be a good way for you to get more into the genre. Okay, so this is what I would call phase 1 of dark romance. This is like dipping your toe into the genre. So these books maybe are not necessarily labeled as a dark romance, but they definitely have elements to a dark romance with their books. So the first series, or even the first book that I think is a great intro to the genre, is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. So when I first read this, I definitely didn't think it was a dark romance, but that's just a me thing because I read so many. But now looking back at it, I definitely think this is definitely, wow, could I say definitely anymore? This is for sure a great start to dark romance. This book is a brother's best friend trope. Basically, what happens is Ava, she lives next door to her brother Josh, and Josh has to go away to work for a year. And he's very protective of his sister, and he doesn't want to leave her alone. So he has his best friend Alex move into his house to kind of watch her for a year. So it's definitely kind of a bodyguard romance, but Alex has a lot of shady things in his life. He's got this whole underlining plot where he's got something going on. The reason that this has dark romance elements to it is because Alex is a very powerful guy. He's a billionaire, but he works for a very shady person. So there's this whole underlining plot in the book where Josh is up to no good and you're kind of trying to figure that out. But it's definitely a great way to dip your toe into the genre because it doesn't go out there with like kidnappings and knife play and rapes and stuff. So this is definitely a great way to start off your journey. Another great series to dip your toe into the genre is the Fallen Men series by Gianna Darling. This is a motorcycle club gang. It takes place in Canada. I have only read the first 2 books, but I will say that they are definitely more tame of other motorcycle club gang and dark romance books that I have read, because once again, you're gonna have all of these dark romance elements to it without going all the way out there. So I will say the first book does involve, you know, kidnappings, hostage situations like that, but like once again, you're not going to go all the way out there with your kinks and rapes and knife play and all of that. So you're going to have, you know, suspense and those dark romance elements, but once again, you're not going all the way out there. So the first book in the series is a student-teacher romance. It is an age gap, but it is reversed between a female teacher and her male student. And the male student is the son of the president of this motorcycle club gang. Now, normally I don't like reversed age gap, but I actually loved this one. I loved their relationship. It was very believable to me. And then the second book is going to be Zeus, and he is the president of this motorcycle club gang. And this is definitely an age gap as he is with Lulu, a 17-year-old. I didn't really like this book, but it was just more of a boredom thing for me. But however, so many people love the second book. It's like one of their favorite books ever. So Once again, if you are wanting to dip your toe into this genre, this is a great series to start with. Okay, then next we have phase 2. And phase 2 is what I would say is when you are reading a book where you definitely know it is labeled as a dark romance. You're gonna have like maybe a bully romance in here, mafia, kidnappings and stuff, maybe some rapes, but we're not going to be so graphic about it. Maybe this stuff happens off page, or maybe it's just not in a whole lot of detail, but it's just another kind of great way to start, but more than the phase 1 books. So the 2 books here are by the same author, so I'm just going to hold them up at the same time. But that is Penelope Douglas, and you have Punk 57, and then you have Bully. Now, both of these are high school bully romances. And I know that these 2 get talked a lot about for dark romance, but I think they are a great intro to dark romance. Now, let me tell you, this book right here was my freaking introduction into the romance genre. And I think because this was the first contemporary romance I ever read, this book right here is the reason that I love so much dark and twisted shit, okay? So I always have to give this book the credit that it is due. So this one is going to be a pen pal relationship. The 2 main characters have never met each other. They had a class assignment pen pal relationship between 2 opposite schools, and they just really hit it off, but they agreed that they never wanted to meet each other to not like destroy the illusion or anything like that. Well, they happen to meet each other when they are in high school. He finds out it's her, she doesn't know it's him, and he's very off-put from her because she's nothing like her letters. She's the opposite. And so he kind of bullies her. There's a lot more to it, I do have to say, but I freaking love this book. And then you have Bully, and this is obviously going to be a high school bully romance. This was Penelope's first ever book. So it's not going to be that great revolutionary, but I will say it is amazing. It does hold a special place in my heart. So this is going to be childhood best friends turned enemies to lovers. He does bully her. He feels like he was betrayed by her when they were about 13 years old. And so he just kind of treats her like crap at school and makes it so no other guy can go out with her because he's in love with her, but he bullies her. It's a whole thing. But I think these 2 books right here are great for like very beginning of dark romance, but like it's still not the dipping the toe into it because these are bully romances. So these guys do not treat these ladies very well in the beginning of these stories. Okay, and then we have phase 3, and this is where we're really going to start to get a little bit more crazy with our stories, with our themes, with our trigger warnings. They're going to get more intense, but we're still not totally intense. I have about 5 levels here, okay? So the first one I have is The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. I think I butcher this every time I talk about it. But so this is going to be the first book in a standalone companion novel series. And this is about a society at a fictional college called Barrington University. And all of the kids there are basically being brought up to become lords and ladies when they graduate. Their parents have been lords and ladies, their grandparents. It's been a thing for a long time. Well, the guys obviously become lords, and basically, to describe it, they are just all very wealthy, powerful men that can get away with killing people and doing crazy crap like that. And then you have the ladies, and the ladies, it's basically a lot of arranged marriages. They are there to serve their husbands. Some of them commit crazy crimes in return. So how this story is set up is that at the college, for the first 3 years of their education, the guys are not allowed to have sex. It's just a rule. And by their senior year, for being rewarded a job well done, they are given a chosen. And a chosen is a list of girls who will eventually be ladies, like their parents approved of all this. And the guys can go on this list and choose a girl that is going to be his for the remainder of the school year. Like their property, they do a whole ritual and everything to show this. And so that is how this book is set up. So I will say it does have darker elements in here because there is a lot more descriptions with violence and sexual assault and things like that. But it's still not dark in the sense that you're not going to have any questions with consent, because I know with dark romance that is a big thing, is when consent is questionable or not. And in this particular book, our leading character, Brexley, she has a rape fantasy kink. And he is very, very, like, adamant when they first get together that he says, you need to tell me that this is okay. Like, he's not going to play into this fantasy if she's not okay with it. But it is also a level 3 because, like I said, the plot is a lot darker and you get more descriptive with your darker elements and your trigger warnings. So I have that book for phase 3, and then I also have Phantom by Greer Rivers. I absolutely love this book. I talk about it a lot, but this is also going to be a phase 3 because you have darker trigger warnings, you have more descriptive violence with blood and all of that stuff, knife play and everything like that. So this is a Phantom of the Opera retelling, but it is a mafia story, so you're going to have obviously dark romance elements there with it being mafia. I will say, though, this one probably isn't as crazy as The Ritual, but it does have some darker things in here that I know some people found unsettling. I will also say, though, this book has bipolar representation because the author is bipolar herself, and so I know a lot of people, that was a big trigger warning for them. So this one is just one that just goes a lot heavier with your themes. Okay, and then we have phase 4. Now, phase 4 is going to be some pretty dark stuff. This is stuff I do recommend, but I always tell people to really, really check your trigger warnings here because things are just, it's going to have a lot of elements that are going to make people uncomfortable. I mean, I myself even get uncomfortable with reading this stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say that I sit and read dark romance with like a smile on my face with like smiley face stickers and stuff. No, there is stuff that makes me uncomfortable, but I think it's part of why dark romances impact me so much. But anyway, okay, so phase 4, I have the Hades Hangman series by Tilly Cole. Now, I have talked about this in a few recent videos. This is a motorcycle club series, but it also has a cult as your antagonist, basically. So the females in this series, they come from this cult where they've been imprisoned their whole lives. And then obviously the guys are going to be part of the motorcycle club gang. So the first book is going to follow Styx and May. Styx is the MC. And when the story starts, they are little kids, and he is out in the woods with his dad doing something, and he comes across May, and she's on the other side of a chain fence. And he's so mesmerized by her eyes and everything like that. So then you're going to flash forward years later, and she escapes from the cult as an adult. And she finds herself hiding out within the MC. They take her in, and it basically sets up the rest of the series. This series is very dark, though. It is very dark. So like I said, these girls have been imprisoned in this really freaky religious cult their entire lives. The scenes are very graphic. I will say Tilly is very descriptive with what is going on, the things that these girls have gone through. It is hard to read. It is definitely hard to read. These girls have basically been sex slaves since they were young children. And you read about that. You read about their memories as kids. And so I definitely put it at a 4 because it's out there, but it's not so out there like phase 5. Okay, and then another phase 4, I have a bully hockey romance. So that is Brutal Obsession by S. Massery. I love this book. This was one of my top books of 2022. So the reason that I'm going to say that this is a phase 4 is because, so yes, this is a bully romance. So you're going to have a lot of elements that you had with Punk 57 and Bully. But this is a lot more extreme. This is a college romance. It is a revenge romance. So the story sets up night. Our leading character, Grayson, he is on a date and he is so hammered. Well, he ends up crashing his car, and he basically injures Violet, the other driver, in the process. And he is set to become a big hockey star, and he doesn't want his future to go away. So he ends up swapping places with his date, and he runs out of there. Well, his date turns him in. He gets arrested for the night, but the next day, all the charges are mysteriously dropped. And then you flash forward 6 months, and Violet and Grayson are now attending the same college. And Grayson is very afraid that Violet is going to spill the beans and ruin his hockey career. The kicker to all of this is that Grayson happened to ruin Violet's dance career in the process with this whole accident. But I will say the reason I'm putting this as a phase 4 is because of Grayson. Grayson was such an unhinged character, probably one of the most unhinged male characters I have ever read about. If you watch Euphoria, I use this as a reference to him all the time, but if you watch Euphoria, Grayson was Nate. With his actions and his choices and what he would do to get revenge and what he would do to basically keep Violet under his thumbnail and control her, it was so Nate. It was just so on brand, and it had my adrenaline pumping. It made me want to like dive into the book and kick his ass myself. But I will say Violet was definitely not a doormat. She stuck up for herself. She fought back, but this does have a lot of graphic scenes. There's assault in here. There is knife play, so you're going to have a lot of blood in here. But like I said, the reason I put this as a phase 4 is because of our MC. He does not treat Violet very well, and just the lengths that he is willing to go to like tear her down and destroy her in the process. But I absolutely love this book, but it's definitely going to be another one of your trigger warnings. But like I said, this is just a me thing, but the reason I put this as a 4 is because the trigger warnings are higher, and Grayson himself is just not a good guy, but I still loved him overall. And then we have phase 5, and this is probably the darker stuff that I have read. This is just a me thing. There are a lot of darker stuff out there that I still have yet to read, but they are on my TBR, so I will probably do some updated version of this video in the future, but for now this is just what I have for phase 5. So first we have the Haunting and Hunting Adeline duet. This is a stalker romance. A lot of people have read it, so you pretty much know the premise of it, but I will say this book goes so out there with your descriptions. Like, the author did not hold back, I will say. This was the most intense book that I had ever read at the time. It was a wild ride, and I loved it. I will say book 2, definitely, like, I was more frustrated because of the cliffhanger with book 1. But this is obviously a phase 5 because I cannot spoil the plots. But because of what happens at the end of book 1, book 2 is a lot worse, actually. Book 1 is still absolutely crazy. There is a spicy scene with a gun. That is all I'm going to say, okay? But definitely check your trigger warnings, okay? This book is not going to be for everybody. This book has made people cry, okay? I know of some people that have messaged me and they were kind of mean and they were like, how can you read this book? How can you read things like this? Like, girl, because it's called fiction, okay? Anyway, moving on. So that is what I have for phase 5. And then another one that I have for phase 5, I was not going to put this at phase 5, but one of my good reading besties, he was explaining it to me from a non-dark romance reader angle, and I can kind of see why it would be a 5. So this is the Beauty and Lies series. It's a 4-part series on the same couple, but the books are like 300 pages each, so it's easy to fly through. Now, I read this a year and a half ago, but I will say, it's very, very crazy. And the reason that it is a 5 is because obviously you are going to have violence. You are going to have sexual assault. You are going to have very, very questionable consent. And then what I think the cherry on top of what makes this a 5 is, once again, it is our MC. Okay, so our MC in this story is Rafe. Raphael, he goes by Rafe, or Raph. And Raph, he is a mafia man. He's a very powerful mafia man. They call him El Diablo. He owns like his own island. So when he gets Issa to his island, she's stuck there, okay? So this is an age gap. He basically sees her when she's 16 and falls in love with her. And because she's 16, he's not going to touch her. So he sends in 3 guys to watch her for the next 2 years until she graduates high school. And there is a whole plan in motion that when she graduates, she is going to come to his country and be his. Like this, he has planned this all out just from seeing her across the street. So the first book is that setup, and then you go to their little vacation romance where she meets him and falls in love. But obviously, because he's all like, I want all this now, and she's all like, whoa, you're crazy, he ends up kidnapping her and taking her back to the island. And the reason I say that this is a 5 is because he is so obsessed with her, so toxic, that he's not willing to let her go, to the point where is forced pregnancy in these books. And it is labeled at the beginning of the trigger warnings. He has a doctor give her a fertility shot when she is passed out because he is just so determined to keep her. So there are a lot of elements to these books that make it a 5. The plot gets crazy with kidnappings and all of that. But like I said, I think because of the fact that this has this whole forced pregnancy thing, and because of the MC and the questionable consent, that is why I put it at a level 5. I hope this video was insightful. I hope it was informational. I hope it was helpful. It was kind of a mess. I like I said, I read so much dark romance, Majority of what I read is dark romance. And so I just don't really think of what is more out there versus what is more tame. And so that's why I kind of asked people, and this is just my take on it. This is my take on easy to get into and what's way out there. And I definitely want to read some more out there stuff. So if you have read some like phase 5 level crap that is even more intense than these, please drop them down below, because I'm not afraid to try things like this, okay? I find it fun. Alrighty, well, thank you guys for sticking around, and I will see you next time. Bye!